what is, in my estimation, the most sensitive topic or topics that we deal with. The most important thing in the entire world to me is my faith. The next most important thing to me in this entire world is protecting children. And we have a man of faith who sexually abused children. And to me, that is a horrible event, and it's important that the community know all about the allegations that the victims have brought forward concerning this man of faith. To me, you're supposed to be able to run to the church and to the clergy for counseling, for support. Other than your immediate family, no one should want to give you more support than the church. And that's what we see happening every day. Our churches, our synagogues, our mosques are where we go for emotional support. But then you have someone like David Cooper, Pastor David Cooper. He is the pastor of the Mountain Movers Ministries church in Eloise, Florida. And here's what we know through our investigation. The wife of David Cooper, who is Lisa Johnson Cooper, took a child less than 12 years of age who she had access to, and David had access to her, to the hospital to determine if she'd been sexually battered. Of course, the hospital notified the sheriff's office. We began our investigation, and what was determined at the conclusion of a very lengthy investigation was that this child that was taken to the hospital was the victim of lewd conduct in the child's presence. Our detectives, which are simply the very best in the business, investigated further and also found that Pastor David Cooper, years ago, sexually abused a child between the ages of 10 and 12 years of age when this now adult person was then a child and he had access to her. This investigation has not shown at this point that he sexually abused any children in the church. But we need the families of the people who attend the church, or we need any families that Pastor David Cooper had access to be aware of what we now know, that he is a child molester, that the information that we received directly from the victims, their firsthand accounts, tells us he sexually abused children under the age of 12, and years later, we see lewd conduct, at least 5 occasions, to a child under the age of 12. We're realists in this business. We know that you don't sexually abuse a child years ago and do absolutely nothing, and all of a sudden you sexually commit lewd conduct in the presence of a child years later. So what we want to know is, are there other victims, and where are those victims, and please bring them forward. One of the most difficult things we encounter when we conduct investigations is people hiding information. They don't want to get the pastor in trouble. They don't want to get the husband in trouble. And therefore, wives, it's hard to believe, but will be in total denial that their husband can commit horrific acts, or will just flat tell you things that aren't true to cover up for their husbands who are sexual child molesters and predators. So at the end of the day, this rocks the very core of what this country is about. When your faith leader is attacking children under the age of 12, well under the age of 12, you've cut against the grain of two of the most precious things that we have in our world, our children and our faith. Our goal, and you can see a pre-book photo of Pastor David Cooper and a bookend photo of Pastor Cooper. We want you to see him in his different looks, because our goal is to make sure he never has access to children again. And you can help us. You can also help us identify other victims if, in fact, they exist. Don't be in denial. Child abuse, child neglect, sexual battery of children, lewd conduct with and in the presence of children exist only when adults hide it. Children will tell you the truth. Any questions?
Was his wife charged, or was she hiding?
His wife actually took the child to the hospital initially to determine if the child had been a victim of sexual battery. And the physical examination showed no evidence of sexual battery. However, through our investigation, we determined that the pastor committed lewd conduct in the presence of this child that he had access to on, I think, 5 different occasions or 4 different occasions. But in any event, the wife got the ball rolling. I don't know if she intentionally got the ball rolling, because the hospital notified us, and she was forthright in the beginning of the investigation. But when it became abundantly evident her husband was in trouble, she started defending, covering up, not cooperating as we had hoped she would. But here's a message to the ladies. If you think you're going to make your husband, who's a child molester, a better person and stop him from doing this, you're not. He is a deviant, sick individual who has a psychological proclivity to abuse children given the opportunity, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. You can only hide their horrific conduct. Stop it. Make sure that we know who's abusing children, because we have to deal with them swiftly and appropriately according to law, or they will continue to abuse children, period. That's our concern. We know as a young man, he abused a child less than 12, sexually abused this child less than 12 that he had access to. And now, years later, we see that another child has provided very complete data about how he performed lewd conduct in the presence of that child. You can also call that grooming, getting the child used to that environment. We know in between, given the opportunity, based upon research and anecdotal evidence from other cases, he more than likely has abused other children. We have zero evidence to prove that at this time. That's where the community comes in. That's where the moms comes in, because mom's going to know it. usually more often than dad. Usually dad will react to it. But if moms or dads or neighbors or friends has any information, we need to know, because Pastor David Cooper from the Mountain Movers Ministry needs to be locked up for a very long time.
Can you tell us about the second victim that was from years ago? How did you all come across that?
A great deal of investigative prowess by our detectives.
Also, can you tell me about this Mountain Movers Ministry? Like, is it in his house or how many?
No, it is a church. I thought, do we have a picture of it?
We have a picture of the video.
We will have a picture we'll give to you, or you may want to do your stand-up in front of the church. It's in Eloise.
How long had he been there?
We saw where I think the church was incorporated a year ago.
How big is it?
It's not a large church. It's a small church.
Did he have service every Sunday, or was it like a ministry?
Yes, it was a church. I mean, so, and I think the times were on the sign. I glanced at the sign, but I believe the times of the church services are on the sign. For you.
How long he's been a pastor?
No, I don't know that. Too long.
So you know if he's preached at any other churches in Polk County?
I don't know that either. He may answer that for you.
Did he have any other jobs besides this?
Yes, he did. He had another full-time job. I'm not sure what it was. But here's the important thing. The important thing is, Jesus says this is wrong, God says this is wrong, and the pastor's doing it. And our law says you're going to jail for it. I'm not going to get crossways with God or Jesus, I can tell you right now. But this preacher he's got to answer to us, and then there's a higher court he'll answer to later on.
Do you have any idea if he and his wife have other children?
I don't know about any of his children, how many children. I have no information. I don't know whether it's his first marriage, second marriage. I'm not sure. But I do know this, that these cases are always difficult to make because wives don't cooperate, wives become defensive, wives are in denial, or wives just don't believe the obvious. Fortunately, this is a good, strong case. It can always be stronger. There are other victims, and we need to know about it.
You mentioned,
If there are. We have no evidence. Yes, ma'am.
you mentioned that this lewd conduct victim had some strong evidence. Is this something like lewd pictures on a cell phone or something?
We're not going to talk about all the evidence today, but the affidavits, the redacted affidavits, will give you some idea of the evidence we have. Okay?
Can we have the two photos together?
Would you like to see the two photos together? This is what you look like when you're first arrested. This is what you look like at bookend. This is a photograph of a person, according to his victims, that has sexually battered children under the age of 12, a child under the age of 12, and also perform lewd conduct in the presence of a child well less than 12. Pastor David Cooper. I would suggest today that he's let his wife down, he's certainly let the church down, and he's let God down. And he's in a world of trouble on all fronts. Okay? Thank you very much. Y'all have a great day, and we will see you later.
Yes, not.